In order for our organization to maximize productivity, we must match the right people with the right jobs. Why? Because mismatched workers tend to have low job satisfaction, leading to absenteeism, high turnover, and lower levels of productivity than who those are matched effectively in their work. The first step to matching people to the right jobs is to determine what jobs we need to have performed and the qualifications needed to do the job description, and specifications. We need to start by showing how we design the flow of work and subsequently the jobs in our organizations. Workflows create the need for certain types of tasks to be performed within each part of the organization. Once we've identified those tasks, we determine how to connect those tasks into jobs, and we then design the resulting jobs in certain specific ways, depending on what our priorities are as an organization. Imagine that we're starting up a brand new company. The first thing we have to do is determine what we expect the organization to do. The way in which we put the organization together will depend on what we expect it to do, and that in turn will help determine the workflow. Workflow analysis is the tool that we use to identify what has to be done within the organization to produce a product or service. Workflow analysis is a bit different from some of the other things we do because we have to do it backward. The first thing we need to do is analyze the end result of the process of our expected organizational outputs. In other words, we need to know what the customer wants from us. So, how do we start workflow analysis? By looking at the end result. Once we identify the result we expect, then we can determine the steps or activities required to create the end result we've identified. Finally, based on the steps that we identify and the tasks that have to be performed, we can identify the inputs that are going to be necessary to carry out the steps and perform the tasks. Resource inputs include machines, resources such as tools, equipment, manufacturing machinery, and other machines that are used in completing work. Material, which are any physical resource like wood, metal, buildings, real estate, and so on that we use in production. Manpower, the people who are needed in a particular production process, both quantity and types. And finally, money, the capital that must be spent to perform our processes. These are the 4 large categories of resources that we use up in doing what we intend to do. Whenever we look at workflow analysis, we have to identify which of these 4 M's and how much of each we're using in a particular process. Workflow analysis almost always shows us some steps or jobs within the organization that can be combined, simplified, or eliminated. In some cases, workflow analysis will show that certain types of groups or self-managed work teams, rather than individual workers, should be the basic building blocks of our process. Does HR do all of this workflow analysis? No, the organization's line management is typically responsible for mapping out workflows. However, HR managers need to understand the process so that they can assist line managers in identifying the tasks and human inputs required to do those tasks, and so that they can design appropriate organizational systems such as training, development, and incentive compensation systems for the human resources who will be performing the tasks. This will keep people both motivated and efficient. Job analysis is the process used to identify the work performed and the working conditions for each of the jobs within our organization. Job analysis analyzes one small part of the workflow, and the results of the analysis will include duties, responsibilities, skills, knowledge required, outcomes, conditions under which the worker must operate, and possibly other factors. The 2 primary outcomes for most job analysis projects are the job descriptions and the job specifications. The job description identifies the major tasks, duties, and responsibilities that are components of the job. While the job specification identifies the qualifications of a person who should be capable of doing the job tasks noted in the job description. Job analysis is at the core of human resource management. It's the basis of just about everything that HR does. If you think about it, you will quickly realize that we need to identify and correctly analyze the jobs in the organization in order to perform any of the following functions. Human resource planning. Job analysis helps us design jobs better to get the results that we need. Job evaluation for compensation. If we don't know what the job consists of, how can we determine how much the job is worth to the organization so we know how much to pay the person? Staffing, recruiting, and selection. If we don't know what an employee is going to do and how much we will pay that employee, then how will we know whom to recruit and hire? Training. If we don't know what the job consists of, how can we teach people to do the job? Performance management. How can we evaluate performance if we don't know what the worker's job consists of? Maintain a safe work environment. Job analysis will help us to identify hazards that the job incumbent will need to understand, as well as any required personal protective equipment and training that person will need to safely carry out the job. Other things that can be affected by job analysis include individual career planning and development, organizational strategy and structure, employee relations and legal compliance, and many other human resource management tasks. So, job analysis is important to the HR department, but how does it affect other managers? Think about the following issues that any organizational manager may face on a routine basis. Managers must have detailed information about all of the jobs in their work group so that they can manage the workflow process well. Managers need to understand job requirements in their work groups so that they can make intelligent hiring, training, and promotion decisions. Every manager is responsible for conducting performance evaluations in some form, whether on an annual or rolling basis, to ensure that employees are performing their jobs satisfactorily. So, we can see that job analysis is very important both to HR managers and line managers in any organization. One free resource, the U.S. Department of Labor's ONET, provides data on over 900 different job titles, and the list is continually updated. Let's take a minute to go into a bit more detail on how ONET can help your organization with job analysis, job descriptions, and job specifications. ONET and its partner site, ONET Online, provides information on nearly 1,000 jobs that are common to many different businesses and industries. Once you've reviewed the toolkits that these sites provide, you might want to take a look at the ONET Online at www.onetonline.org. The ONET content module, located at the website that we previously discussed, identifies 6 categories within its occupational classification structure. Worker characteristics are enduring traits that influence a person's performance on the job, abilities, interests, work styles, and work values. Worker requirements, attributes acquired through experience and/or education, like knowledge and skills. Experience requirements like training and education needed, job zone, education, training, and experience. Occupational requirements, actual work performed on the job, including work activities. Workforce characteristics, labor market related information like wages and employment. Occupational specific information, detailed elements of specific jobs and tasks. Using the information from the content model, HR managers can create custom reports on each occupational search through ONET. So ONET is a handy, free resource for job analysis, job descriptions, and job specifications. 5 commonly used methods of job analysis include the use of questionnaires, interviews, diaries, observations, and subject matter expert panels. Valid and reliable questionnaires are available for use in the job analysis process. A questionnaire can be given to many different people in order to analyze a job in question. Questionnaires have certain advantages. They're a quick way to get information, they're usually easy to quantify, relatively low in cost, generally valid and reliable, and there's no need for a trained interviewer or observer to participate. The disadvantages are incomplete responses, responses that are hard to interpret, and low response rates are possible if there's no supervisory follow-up. Another available method is the job analysis interview, in which questions are usually asked of the incumbent and the answers are compiled into a profile of the job. Advantages include that the incumbent is the most familiar person with the job. They can also include qualitative data. It allows the interviewer to follow up. They're simple, quick, and more comprehensive, and they explain the need for analysis. But some disadvantages include the fact that interviews are dependent on a trained interviewer as well as designed questions. Workers may also exaggerate their job duties, and they can be time consuming and not the most cost effective. With a log, the worker maintains a log or diary in which the employee writes down the tasks accomplished while going about the job. Some advantages include the participatory form of analysis. We can collect data as it happens. The worker knows the job and what's important, and it's useful for jobs that are difficult to observe. However, disadvantages include our reliance on the workers writing down all job-related tasks. The worker may rely on memory of things earlier in the day. That results in information distortion, and data is not a standardized format. We can also use observation of the person at work, in which the observer shadows the worker and logs tasks that the worker performs over a period of time. Advantages include the first-hand knowledge, allowing the analyst to see the work environment, reducing information distortion, and the relatively simple use of the process. Disadvantages include the observer affecting job performance, inappropriate, significant mental effort being put in, may lack the validity and reliability of other methods, it's time consuming, and requires a trained observer. These methods are not certainly the only methods of job analysis, and they might not even be the best options for any particular situation. What's the difference? In a task-based job analysis, we describe the job as a function of the tasks performed within the job. Well, in a competency-based job analysis, we look at the capabilities that an individual would need to have to succeed on the job. Competencies include such things as teamwork, leadership, interpersonal communication, and critical thinking. Task-based job analysis tends to be simpler in form and execution, while competency-based job analysis is more complex due to the fact that we have to think about a broader set of skills and abilities as opposed to the ability to do a set task. We would use competency-based analysis in organizations that are less structured and less stable in the work that they accomplish. The primary outcomes that we're looking for in any job analysis are the creation of a job description and a job specification. These two outcomes are routinely written into one document that we usually call a job description. The job description identifies the tasks and responsibilities of the position. Simply put, it describes the job itself, not the person who will do the job. A job specification, our other job analysis outcome, identifies the qualifications needed by the person who's to fill a position. Many organizations include both of these in one document that they call the job description. We use the job specification to go out and recruit when we have an opening for the job, among many other strategic HR tasks. Job design is the process of identifying tasks that each employee is responsible for completing, as well as identifying how those tasks will be accomplished. Job design is critical for business because it affects job satisfaction and productivity, along with a large numbers of other functions of human resource management. Job design refers to changing the tasks or the way work is performed in an existing job. The nature of work has dramatically changed over the last decade. The way in which we combine the components of an organization's structure causes employees within that organization to act in different ways. If we have a more relaxed, flatter structure with lots of autonomy for our workers, we'll need to design our jobs to take advantage of that autonomy or self-direction on the part of employees. Job design or redesign can take on several forms, depending on what we're trying to accomplish in our organization. There are four primary approaches to job design: mechanistic, biological, perceptual motor, and motivational. The mechanistic or organic job design focuses on designing jobs around the concepts of task specialization, skill simplification, and repetition. Biological job design focuses on minimizing the physical strain on the worker by structuring the physical work environment around the way the body works. Perceptual motor job design focuses on designing jobs with tasks that remain within the worker's normal mental capabilities and limitations. Motivational job design focuses on the characteristics that affect the psychological meaning and motivational potential on the job, and it views attitudinal variables as the most important outcomes of job design. The theory is that if workers are more motivated, they'll produce more work. The job characteristics model provides a conceptual framework for designing or enriching jobs based on core job characteristics. The model can be used by individual managers or by members of a team. Use of the job characteristics model may improve employee motivation and job satisfaction, and it can increase performance. Users of the job characteristic model focus on core job dimensions, the psychological states of employees, and the strengths of employees' need for growth. In the job characteristics model, 5 core job characteristics can be fine-tuned to improve the outcomes of a job. Skill variety is the number of diverse tasks that make up a job and the number of skills used to perform the job. Task identity is the degree to which an employee performs a whole identifiable task. Task significance is the employee's perception of the importance of the task to others, the organization, the department, coworkers, or customers. Autonomy is the degree to which the employee has discretion to make decisions in planning, organizing, and controlling the task performed. Feedback is the extent to which employees find out how well they perform their tasks. Note that if employees are not interested in enriching their jobs, the job characteristics model will fail. So the 3 core job characteristics lead to psychological states and experience to meaningfulness at work, which leads to work-related outcomes. The core characteristic of autonomy leads to the psychological state of experienced responsibility for outcomes. Finally, feedback leads to the psychological state of knowledge of results. All of the psychological states collectively lead to all of the outcomes noted at the right side of the diagram we just saw. We need to make these decisions during the job design phase so that we understand what end result we're looking for. Job simplification is the process of eliminating or combining tasks and/or changing the work sequence to improve performance. Job simplification makes jobs more specialized. Job simplification breaks down jobs into steps using a flowchart, and then employees analyze the steps to see if they can do the following. Eliminate. Does the task or do parts of it have to be done at all? If not, don't waste time on them. Combine. Doing similar things together often saves time. Make one trip to the mailroom at the end of the day instead of several throughout. Change. Often, a change in the order of doing things or designing new systems results in a lower total time spent on tasks. Motivational. In some cases, work simplification may be motivational. If an individual is overwhelmed by a job, work simplification allows that person to understand the job better, and the job therefore becomes more motivational. So, in the job simplification process, we assist workers with the task identity factor from the job characteristic model and potentially with the task significant factor as well. Job expansion is the process of making jobs broader with less repetition. Jobs can be expanded through rotation, enlargement, and enrichment. Job expansion allows us to focus on making the work more varied. Job rotation involves performing different jobs in the same sequence, each one at a set period of time. Job enlargement involves adding tasks at the same level in the organization to broaden variety. For example, we might have construction workers doing dirt work, concrete forming, and framing carpentry at different times. Job enrichment is the process of building motivators into the job itself to make it more interesting and challenging, frequently through increasing autonomy. Job enrichment works for jobs of low motivation potential and for employees who are ready to be empowered to do meaningful work. An enriched job may also help the employee with the characteristics of task identity and significance in some cases. The purpose of team-based job design is to give a team an entire piece of work. When we provide the team with an entire piece of work, it is a form of job enrichment, and as a result, autonomy, task identity, and task significance go up at a substantial rate. Teams develop innovative routines that get passed on to other teams. Two common types of work teams are integrated teams and self-managed teams. Integrated work teams are assigned a number of tasks by a manager, and the team in turn gives specific assignments to members and is responsible for rotating jobs. Self-managed work teams are assigned a goal, and the team plans, organizes, leads, and controls to achieve the goal. Teams commonly elect their own members and evaluate each other's performance. Flexible job design has become necessary in today's workforce, where most of our employees are filling many more roles outside of work than in years past. Because they fill more roles, they faced more time constraints that were historically not as severe. Flexible work arrangements mean that we can target people with these time constraints and, as a result, have more and better pools of applicants to choose from when we need new workers. These tools include flex time, job sharing, telecommuting, and compressed work weeks. Flex time allows us to provide workers with a flexible set of work hours. We usually create a set of core hours where everyone is at work, bandwidth or work hours available, and then set a flex hour schedule. Flex time has the potential to motivate workers because it allows them much greater autonomy with regard to their schedule. In job sharing, also called work sharing, we allow two or more people to share one whole job, including the workload and any benefits that are associated with that job. Telecommuting allows workers to work from a location other than the corporate office, usually from home. Telecommuting also saves the company money because we don't have to have office space for all of our employees. Telecommuting might not work in all business environments. There have been some well-publicized incidents of organizations doing away with telecommuting because of productivity problems with their business. Through the process of forecasting future labor requirements, we make determinations, based on both quantitative and qualitative information, of what types of jobs and how many of each type we will need to fill over a particular period of time. HR forecasting identifies the estimated supply and demand for the different types of human resources in the organization over some future period based on analysis of demand. Reliability identifies how consistent a particular measure is. In other words, does the measure give a similar result every time it's used or when it's used by more than one person? If it does, it's probably reliable. Validity refers to whether or not we measured what we thought we measured. What we're measuring seems obvious to us, but we sometimes make mistakes. Forecasting labor requirements should be completed in two distinct steps. First, we complete a quantitative analysis of our workforce using one or more of several methods, and then we adjust the results of the quantitative analysis using qualitative methods. The value of quantitative data should be obvious to you by this point in your business education, but qualitative analysis are also important. There's no match for years of experience and expertise when analyzing situations that are unique or different from what's happened in our business environment in the past. And qualitative analysis looks at the differences between the historical and the now. A quantitative forecast utilizes mathematics to forecast future events based on historical data. The three most common quantitative methods of forecasting labor demand are trend analysis, ratio analysis, and regression analysis. Trend analysis is a process of reviewing historical items, such as revenues, and relating changes in those items to some business factor to form a predictive chart. Ratio analysis is the process of reviewing historical data and calculating specific proportions between a business factor, like production, and the number of employees needed. Regression analysis is a statistical technique that identifies the relationship between a series of variable data points for use in forecasting future variables. We can use statistical software to create the regression diagram. Most HRIS include this capability. Qualitative forecasts uses non-quantitative methods to forecast the future, usually based on the knowledge of a pool of experts in a subject or in an industry. We need to use both quantitative and qualitative analysis to get good forecasts for future needs of the organization and its human resources. Regardless of the situation, once we know what to expect, we can set up procedures to correct the expected problem. Therefore, balancing our supply and demand for labor affects our firm's productivity. Regardless of whether we have a shortage or a surplus of people, we have to make an attempt to get the right numbers of people within the right skill sets into our organization at the right time. In any situation of surplus, we need to look at how quickly we need to lower our employee numbers, but also look at the effects on our remaining employees. Our first option may be a layoff, especially if we have large numbers of surplus due to changes in our business or the competitive environment. A second option for immediately lowering labor costs is a pay reduction for all or part of the workforce. A third option for lowering labor costs without terminating employees is some form of job or work sharing arrangement. The last option that we'll discuss here is early retirement. Early retirement can be valuable in terms of an options in some cases. However, there can be many pitfalls of using early retirement to reduce an organization's workforce. The best options here for a shortage are methods that are really fast in solving the shortage, but can also be reversed really quickly if a surplus of employees starts to take form. As opposed to the surplus situation in the last section, where we ideally choose options from the bottom up, in a situation where we're facing a personnel shortage, we want to work from the top down to the bottom. Our first option, the quickest and easiest way to fix a personnel shortage, is asking or requiring our employees to work overtime. We can frequently use temporary or contract workers to overcome a short-term shortage, but we probably don't want to use temporary employees for more than a year at most for reasons that we'll discuss shortly. Today, we may be able to overcome a shortage of personnel through technological innovation as well. Outsourcing may be another option when we're facing a shortage. We can outsource to an outside organization a whole function that we currently do in-house. Our next option is turnover reduction. If fewer people voluntarily leave the organization than we predicted, we can reduce a projected shortage. Our next option is to hire new employees, but this option takes a while. So we have to go through a long process of analyzing the job and updating its description, finding out what skills are needed, and then going out and recruiting people, putting them through the selection process to ultimately hire them. Once we hire a new employee and they're beyond their probationary period, it's hard to get rid of them for reasons that don't have just cause.